Chucky Season 3, Episode 3, Jennifer's Body. We got to watch this last night. We went to Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights.
Yep.
So we were going to watch this Wednesday night because we left Thursday. And they wouldn't drop the episode. We kept checking up until like 1 in the friggin' morning. There wasn't on there. So it wasn't on Sci-Fi. Wasn't on Peacock. Wasn't on USA. Couldn't find it.
Wasn't on anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And these episodes are all locked now.
Yeah.
And you have to pay for any one of them. So I guess you got the first two, but not this one.
Free.
So,
yeah.
we did finally watch it, and we are finally here to talk about it. So we're a few days late, but you know, it is what it is. So okay, this is a big episode in a lot of ways, but for me, this is a very exciting episode because if you're a long-standing fan of the franchise and there's some things that you wanted them to touch upon and address from the past, this episode does a few things. And I was really excited to see it because I had been saying for a while there was a couple things for sure that I was like, I wonder if they're ever going to like touch upon this. I want to see them mention this thing, right? Because Jennifer Tilly was starring in a Chucky movie, right? In Seed of Chucky. That's like how she was brought into it. She plays Tiffany Valentine in a Chucky movie called Chucky Goes Psycho.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, are we ever going to address the fact, like, I want to see this, right? Like, the Scream franchise is very, not only aware of, like, the fact that it is being made into films, but really has, like, a focus on it in, like, a lot of the earlier films.
Yeah.
Like, Stab 1 through 7, during the Wes Craven era, it really, you focus on those films and that world quite a bit.
You do.
And in this, it was like the Hollywood version of Chucky, and the fact that the world seems to know that Chucky is a thing.
Yeah.
Doesn't really ever seem to get brought up. And I've always been like bummed out by that. I always thought I was going to see Jennifer Tilly or somebody watching Chucky Goes Psycho in this franchise at some point. But we finally get a mention of that movie here after so many years.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool because Chucky is kind of it's meta.
Yes.
Because as you said, like the world does know that Chucky exists. And even that like Charles Lee Ray like exists. So it's interesting that it hasn't been brought up as much.
The world has known about Andy's claims since the first film.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we find out in the second film that Andy went to the press and basically shut down the good guy line.
Mm-hmm.
And, the big wig who, orders the factory to be reopened and to start making Chuckies again and all that. We find out that that everyone seemed to know about that claim, at least, right? Then as the murders continued to progress, we then find out that, see, the way I always saw Seed of Chucky's movie, the way that, they're making the Chucky movie in Hollywood, is that it's supposed to be a play on their claims. I don't think anyone in this world believes that a killer doll came back from the dead. They think that a kid made these claims, right? Much like there's movies like this. There's tons of movies like this. It's just like urban legends come to life.
Yeah.
Right? And, unfortunately for them, in their world, this stuff is real.
Yeah.
And that's another thing we explore in this episode, which was super interesting, and I would like to see expanded upon much more, is that they go to see a doctor.
Yeah, they go to see a witch doctor.
Yeah.
And that was really cool because it's set up like an actual doctor's office.
Yeah.
So Chucky's sitting there waiting, and there's a lady next to him that's like, "Ah, like you miss one sacrifice and it all goes to hell or whatever."
Yeah.
And the guy has like his ex in a
His ex,
box
yeah.
that he like turned into something. Really cool. And then when Chucky's like seeing the doctor, it's like a totally normal doctor's visit. And he even prints him a prescription for like the ritual that he needs to do in order to stop his body from aging, because the exorcism from last season apparently made Dembala leave him.
Yeah.
Like abandon him. Which is funny because he wasn't, I mean, I don't know, I guess he did have the exorcism performed on him, but he didn't want the exorcism.
Yeah, but it's because they got the Catholicism like curse in him.
Yeah.
And because of that, Damballa, abandons him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's the power of Christ impels you. It's like the demons can only fight against God so much that like when they called in for the big guy,
mm-hmm.
Damballa's like, never mind.
Yeah.
Right? Like I followed you this far, but if if you're gonna let people exercise you and bring God into this,
right?
Which is kind of weird if we're talking about that in a real way of like God only cares when specific dudes who are trained to do this thing come in and make him focus. I thought he was always watching.
Yeah.
I thought he was always paying attention. Like he lets Chucky reign, but like unless somebody like exercises him, like 40 years later, like how many people has he killed? God didn't care.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, I don't know. I guess we have to be vessels for God here, like conduits
mm-hmm.
or something. Like the God can't, like, he has no power here unless it's through a vessel, like a human that he created.
Yeah.
Right? That he can use. I don't know. I'm thinking too deeply about that, but when I saw that, I was like, why doesn't God just stop Chucky? But yeah, no, there's a lot of cool things in here for longtime fans of the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Now, even though it is a dream sequence, which was interesting, kind of a cop out. I'm not a big fan of dream sequences, and I was saying it's probably a dream sequence because they're not going to do that to the legacy character.
Yeah.
But we do get to see Chucky finally kill Andy after 40 freaking years, basically. And that was interesting for sure. It's more like 35 years, but regardless. The one thing, okay. I don't like that it's a dream sequence. I do think it's funny to find out what Chucky actually dreams about. Right?
Yeah.
Like we all dream about different things, and some of them are erotic and this and that.
He dreams about like murder.
His sex.
Yeah.
His sex dreams to him.
He's like laughing when he wakes up. Too.
Yeah.
So funny.
Yeah. It's his fantasy, right?
Yeah.
And he dreams. It's literally like his dream. And we see his list of people that he means to kill, and he has it on his cell phone.
Yeah. And Andy's at the top of the list.
Yeah. Yeah. So. Of course. So yeah, it was interesting to see him get killed. And what I was going to get at there is that this show really is got to be the most like vicious and hardcore when it comes to its practicals and death scenes on television.
Yeah.
This feels like classic, awesome, hardcore, graphic ass deaths.
Yeah.
Every episode.
When he's like killing Andy, even though it's a dream sequence, like
it's gnarly.
It's pretty gnarly. He looks. Yeah. I also really like how the Chucky animatronic, like how it looks there too. He's got that really creepy like frown smile thing that he does. Kind of reminds me of like Child's Play too, because that's like what he looks like a lot in that film, which is why I think he's so scary in it. But when he's stabbing Andy, I mean, he's like stabbing him in the chest a bunch, and then he starts stabbing him in the face. And that was the really gnarly part. Like, dang.
And this is how you do stabbings, right? We
Yeah.
talk about like, oh, the movie wasn't very brutal. It was just a lot of stabbing through clothes and blood like would seep through the clothes, right? But this takes it up that notch and makes it, this is gory, this is graphic, right? Because he's brutalizing right into his face, and we can actually see the blade entering his cheek, and through his eye, and through his head, and through his mouth, and he absolutely brutalizes Andy.
Yes.
Now, it is a dream sequence, but we still get to see it. I mean, a kill sequence and gore is gore, right? Even if it's taken back, we still got to see it, and it's still violent, and it's still awesome practicals. So it's a really cool kill, even if it didn't really happen. And then, of course, we get Keenan from Good Burger and all that, and Saturday Night Live and stuff now, but he'll always be the guy from all that for me. We get to see his umbrella death.
That was great. That was really cool.
Yeah.
That was also, Chucky looked pretty creepy in that too. But yeah, watching him just like shove the umbrella down his throat, like until it was all the way inside.
Yeah.
I don't know that opening the umbrella inside of you would make you explode like that, because I don't think umbrellas are that strong.
I think what happens there is that it's supposed to have like part of it ripped through his very soft throat, but just like a little bit to spray blood.
Right, because that was already
open
being
all the way and like rip him apart. Right,
yeah.
That would be stupid.
Yeah, I think you're right, because obviously his neck was already like being, you know, from it being shoved in there, it's already ripping and stuff. So it was cool. And Carolyn, is that her name? Right,
Coraline.
Carolyn too in this episode. I'm so glad that we have her, because like I think from like season 1, we're like, she's gonna go evil. Like there's something wrong with her, and I was hoping for it. But definitely seeing her with Chucky this episode was really cool. Watching her just observing him and trying to learn from him, and then they have this very weirdly sweet father-daughter moment where Chucky's like telling her that like he was jealous of her dad for having such a cool kid, and it's just very interesting. I'm, you know, because obviously Chucky has a kid that he's not a father figure to. 2 kids, technically. So, yeah, I'm really happy with where Carolyn's arc is going right now. I like that she's becoming more evil and everything.
And, you know, I don't know how much time has supposed to have passed, but Carolyn has aged considerably.
Yeah, she has.
The most notably.
Yeah.
She looks like a child in the first season. And while she still looks like a kid, she looks way older. Like, I was shocked when they showed. Now, to be fair, they put makeup on her and like lipstick and did her hair, and they were like, it's interesting because usually what happens with that, if they're trying to hide her age, they'll like put her in pigtails, and they'll like, you know, do certain kinds of makeup techniques to try to make it look like she's still, because she says she's, I feel like we still hear her age at some point, that she's like 8 or 9 or something.
Yeah, she's like 8 or so.
And this girl's got to be 11 to 12 at least now.
Yeah, but there's been like 2 years that have, 2 years have passed since season 1. Because also Jake, I think Jake looks significantly older as well from the first. I mean, part of it's just because he's like really buff now. But Devin and Lexi look kind of the same to me. They don't really look like they've aged that much. But I do think Carolyn looks a lot older. But not too old that it's like unbelievable. You know?
No, but I just find it fascinating that because putting specific kinds of makeup and lipstick and outfits and hairstyles on anybody is gonna make them look older or younger. And the outfit and the hair and everything that she's wearing in this is purposely done to make her look older.
But that's probably also because she's alone with Chucky. So maybe if she's like looking more mature out in the world, I mean, she still is
people
clearly
won't question
a kid,
it as
but
much. Yeah.
So
it's a good point. That's a good point. I'm just thinking of it from a filmmaking standpoint, where they're trying to make it look like a younger person.
Yeah.
Right? They don't emphasize certain qualities or whatever to try to make them look older. They, you know, they downplay certain things, and yeah. Anyway, but yeah, I was really taken aback by how much older she looked. But that's it. I mean, that's always going to be the case when you make stuff with kids. That's why you got to make it fast. Otherwise, it turns into Stranger Things, and you've got like 25-year-olds playing, 18-year-olds,
Right.
and it's like, or even younger.
Yeah.
But yeah, so because I think, yeah, it doesn't matter. Let's not get into that. So, God, there's so much to talk about in this episode. It's crazy because the other episodes I had like such little notes, and we talked about it, and I was like, oh, cool. But there's so much to say here.
Yeah, this one had a lot. This was a very packed episode.
Yeah. So, first thing, it's really funny that Tiffany pulls off her wig, and she has like perfectly done and curled hair under there. As a hairdresser, I found that to be very funny. Her screaming about her Voodoo for Dummies book, like the fact that we're still going back to this like gag that was introduced in Bride of Chucky. Like this was a joke.
Yeah.
Like, right, Bride of Chucky was supposed to be like an answer to the franchise for what Scream had done. Right? So Scream comes along, and then it makes everything meta. And now from this point on, Halloween H2O, Bride of Chucky, these franchises have to become very self-aware.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And in that, the Voodoo for Dummies book is there as a joke. It's there as like she's holding it up because at that time in the late 90s, there was a blank for dummies, blank for morons, for idiots, for whatever book, that yellow spine freaking book that was everywhere. There used to be an entire section of Barnes and Nobles that was just that.
Yeah.
And literally every subject you could imagine. But now we have the internet, so they're not really useful anymore as much as they once were. But they did that. It was like a joke at that there's a book on everything now.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's still here in the franchise prominently. Like Caroline gets a hold of it and studies it, right? I love how much this franchise, as silly and has many different tones as it's went through, that it really sticks to its guns on what it's done.
Yes.
It never tries to retcon anything from the past, no matter how silly or serious or whatever it is, even though the show is like constantly silly and this and that, they never shy away from anything that they've ever done in the entire franchise. I love that so much.
Yeah, they really try to stick with the continuity of things. Like even in the trial, in Tiffany's trial, when Nika is on the stand and the lawyer is like, why would she confess to killing your family? They still bring that up, right? Which is very important. But as far as you're saying with like the Voodoo for Dummies, I really love seeing that. And I think that they just made it work even more by having an actual witch doctor that people go to. So it's like, it is real. People are using it or other, books to do voodoo magic and get things that they want. And I just think that's very funny.
It is interesting to me, though, that like they're selling that book at like a Barnes and Noble, right, and that it actually works. Are they suggesting? Because that's just it. So I do want to touch upon that because I think that's important with this episode. I think that they set themselves up really well for further seasons exploring like other mystics and other like possessed things and black magic and whatever. Like Chucky going up against other things that are like him, right?
Yeah.
Not getting away from the shtick of Chucky wants to get a new body. Chucky wants to kill X person from his past. That shtick, while I still love this show and I still love this franchise and I'll watch pretty much whatever as long as it stays at this quality. I mean, I'll probably watch it no matter what, but regardless, I just think that this is a good new avenue to explore, right? It really is something that can add to the franchise in a much more like new and fresh way.
Yeah, I agree. I'm curious if they do start to go down that route with introducing other religions and practices and cursed objects. Because we've already had a whole season sort of like about Catholicism, obviously, but it wasn't like what you're suggesting.
You could have someone, people coming after him because, they want what he has, right? People who are trying to steal his body, and they're like trying to call on Dumbella for taking Chucky's body.
Sure.
Right? Or whatever. I mean, you can do so many different things with that. Now that you've introduced that there's this whole like witch doctor network of, black magic card carrying, kinds of people. It's like an NRA for black magic. So I'm fascinated by that, and I think that is a very that's a rich depository for cultivation. You can get so much out of that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So I hope that's where they go in the future. We shall see. And I love that Nika's mortal enemy in this is stairs. That's so funny to me. They just go to stairs, and she just has to have like a normal conversation with them right there, because it's like she's screwed. She can't do anything.
Yeah.
She just has to kind of sit there and is like, that's a huge weakness. That's one hell of a kryptonite.
I thought she was, for a moment, I thought she was going to just roll herself down and like try and tackle them.
Yeah.
But she doesn't. She just can't go down there.
Yeah. I wonder if Nika is going to try to like get a new body or something, or even track down this witch doctor and do some kind of ritual to get her limbs back.
That would be interesting.
I mean, if you can transfer at this point in the franchise,
anything is possible.
Let's be honest.
Yes.
Right? It's
anything
definitely
is possible.
Anything is possible for sure. And when Jennifer Tilly is like posing for pictures as she's like about to walk to the stand,
she's so wonderful.
She's definitely kept very much like the character feels like it's brought right over.
Yes.
From Bride of Chucky.
It feels exact. Yeah, she's kept it very consistent with Bride of Chucky, and I love it. I love seeing her in this show. When we first were, when she first came into the show, it was super exciting. And I still like this episode. I'm glad we got to spend more time with her, like seeing her in prison, and she has stilettos and like lipstick and jewelry and cigarettes and stuff. And it's just like, it's funny because like we've talked about how like when certain like really wealthy people go to prison, like it's not the same experience as like normal people going to prison.
Yeah.
So it's funny that she has that, like she's having that kind of an experience rather than a punishment. She's sort of just like, I don't know, kind of like locked away, but not missing out on the niceties that she's used to.
Sure. Yeah, it feels very consistent with the character that we know. So
yeah,
that's great. Chucky is, facing his mortality here, and the whole aging process where he's getting crow's feet and he has old man hands, and
I know. His hands are actually scary.
Yeah.
When Carolyn was doing his makeup and stuff, and he's like, don't forget the hands, and like he's like holding his hands up, they don't look like doll hands anymore at all.
No.
They're scary looking.
Well, and he also says, my weapon is my cuteness.
Yes.
Like I can't look like this. So it will be funny to me if we do throughout this get to see Chucky like age, like exponentially. Like where we're going to see like balding gray Chucky with like a bunch of wrinkles coming at them. Like, and then at the end of this, he pleases Dumbella and gets his, body back. But I hope that they go, because we did get last season, we got to see buff Chucky. We got to meet nice guy Chucky.
Yeah.
We got different versions of Chucky, but old man Chucky
would be,
because he's balding, right? His hair is falling out. So to see like, he's got male pattern baldness all the way back. And then this all starts to turn like it's like gray and some bits of like
the
orange.
orange, yeah.
Like
It would
that
be
kind of
funny.
stuff would be great.
It would be so good.
And for him to like start, you know, killing people, and he like pulls his back, and he's, you know,
he has, like injuries.
Yeah, he starts
old people injuries.
Yeah,
yeah.
That's something they should absolutely be playing around with.
Yes.
Now, why Chucky's like biding his time in the White House, because we finally find out what he has to do. He's trying to not age. He's trying to, you know, get Dumbella back on his side.
Mm-hmm.
So he has to kill 6 people in the most evil house. And speaking of which, he visits the Amityville house. That was so unexpected.
That was so unexpected, yeah.
This is the second time now that in a major franchise that I'm familiar with, that the Amityville house shows up unexpectedly, and I'm completely surprised out of nowhere. First time that happened was in the second Conjuring movie, when it opens on those windows and that house and pans back, and I was like, whoa, like, are we crossing franchises right now? And then you were like, oh yeah, Amityville's a real thing.
I know, yeah. That's why I think it's interesting, because you forget that it is real, that did happen. It is a true crime story.
Yeah. Them damn Dutch colonials.
Yeah, when he started talking about Dutch colonials, and he was like, the Amityville house, he said the house from Twin Peaks and
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Nightmare on Elm Street. And I was like, are those the same style houses? I've never noticed Nightmare on Elm. I have to look at them side by side.
Yeah, I mean, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Nightmare on Elm Street house, definitely. Like,
I don't know about Laura Palmer's house. I'll have to look at Laura Palmer's house. But yeah, that was cute. And then
he just said Twin Peaks. Are you sure it's Laura Palmer's?
I would assume it's Laura Palmer's house. It's like the main house in Twin Peaks.
Yeah. Okay.
But he goes in to this party and kills like everybody.
Way more than 6.
Way more than 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't work. He starts saying the incantation in French.
Yeah.
And it just nothing happens.
Yeah. Can someone, if we have any French speakers here, can we get a translation from you?
I know he's saying something like "forgive me."
Okay.
That for sure. He was like saying something about forgiveness at least. But
I want
a translation.
I want a translation of the original one from the first film, which maybe it's the same as this one. I honestly don't. I'd have to hear them side by side. Or the one Tilly says, whichever. Like, I want to know what these are translated. But yeah, so seeing that Chucky is in front of the White House and saying like the decisions made in this house have killed. He says thousands, right? I would say
he says more than
millions and millions of people have died because of decisions made in that house, if not a billion more.
Yes.
Like, good or bad, disagree, agree, whatever. That's, part of politics, part of the government. That's what they do. And I'm definitely, I don't think there's anybody, I don't care what political side you're on.
Yeah.
Thinks that every decision made at the White House that got people's lives killed were all like justified good things.
No.
There's no way anybody actually thinks that. I don't give a shit who you voted for. I don't care what political affiliation. I don't care what crap you read. Nothing is perfect.
No.
Right? And so Chucky is right. With a place like that, the most evil currently in this world that has been committed comes from that house.
Yeah, for sure. So it's funny, obviously, that he decides to go there, but it makes sense.
Yeah. So that we gotta
explanation for why he's in the White House.
It would be funny to find out that someone else already tried to do this, that he finds that out, and that's why they like burned down the house in, I think it was 1812, when the White House burnt down once and it had to be rebuilt. It would be funny to find out that's why. But
he was already told that this only was attempted one time in like the 11th century.
Yeah, but somewhere else, like in some other thing.
Yeah.
But I just mean not this specific ritual, just something else. But that's cool. That would have been great. That would have been a good catch. It's only been tried once before.
Yeah.
And when he says like, it's an evil that even you can't fathom or whatever. And he's like, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
It's funny. I mean, he's obviously horrible
He is.
and awful, and you want him to die, but you don't.
Yeah.
He's that
We love to hate
anti-hero.
him.
It's weird. It's a weird relationship that you have with Chucky. And this is why talking killers are exponentially more interesting than non-speaking killers.
Yeah.
There's a personality. I can get an insight on what Chucky wants and what he thinks and what he's saying and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So Chucky's been able to endure and have this kind of storyline and remain like a main character because he speaks. So simple.
It's true.
But now Jennifer Tilly gets convicted for 103 murders. What are these?
I mean, you had said maybe some were Chucky's victims.
I would assume, but I mean,
they killed people together, obviously.
It would be interesting to find out that in the franchise, if you were to tally up all the kills, it came to 103.
Yeah.
Maybe. If that was like a nod to the kill count of the franchise thus far.
I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, but I don't know specifically what murders those are. Because it's Jennifer Tilly, not Tiffany Valentine. Like, because Tiffany's killed a ton of people as well before she was even in Jennifer's body.
Yeah, but 103, and of course we get the reference to the title of the episode with Megan Fox. But like, does he like? Because 100 deaths. That's a lot of people.
That's a lot,
right? Like all the serial killers that we're familiar with, the Bundys and the Gaines and the Dahmers, all that shit. They never even gotten close to 100. They don't even like. If you put all the main known killers together, they barely do 100, right? Bundy, Manson didn't really kill anybody, but his people did. Dahmer, like 100 people, so many. Now, the most prolific serial killers, which they're all from like South America for some reason. If you look up like the people who've done the most, the number one guy is like 400 kids, which is just so insane. And unfortunately, in that area in which these like the top 2 or 3 ever, the country they live in, they have a max term that you can do for literally anything. So no matter what you do, you can never do more than X amount of time. That's awful. So these guys will get convicted of like 10,000 years, and then it'll be struck down to what the maximum allowed is, which is like 20 years.
Oh my God. That's awful.
Yeah, look it up. It's wild stuff. It's wild stuff.
So
And the guy who did number 2, which I think was like 350, they let him out. After he did his time, they just let him out. Anyways,
that's crazy.
Putting that aside, it's just 100, it's a lot. And,
it is a lot, yeah.
One thing that I definitely feel like they did not mention, and they should, I hope they do in the future now, because this is a flashback episode leading up to and letting us know of how Chucky came into Henry's life, which we still haven't talked about. But like, it would be a big deal. And it would be all over the news. And I hope that we get to see it on the news in the future. It should have been in previous episodes, for sure. And then we would have been like, oh, that's that. But you know how big of a deal it would be if like 9-10 people got murdered in the Amityville house?
Yes.
That would be all over the news.
Oh my God, that would be huge. Yeah.
So the fact that doesn't get brought up.
Right. Maybe we'll get a reference to it. It should. We should. At some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think we should, right?
We should. Yeah. It's some point, but I don't know. It could also, we could just move on from it and it never be mentioned again.
It just seems like a waste. I feel like Devin and Jake and Lexi would have seen it on the television. I feel like that's something.
Yeah.
While they were at Miss Fairchild's house, I feel like that's something that should have popped up on the TV and did them just see it.
Yeah.
And we see it kind of in the background and we're like, Amityville.
Yeah.
We're like, what's happening there? And then like, it's not mentioned and we're like, what was that? Right. And then this happens and then we go, oh.
Yeah. Well, we could still get it because like you said, it's a flashback. So
it is, but it happened months ago.
Yeah. I mean, like if we get any other flashback moments with the kids,
I hope it's brought up again.
Yeah.
I hope it's brought up again because that would be bigness.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do see how Chucky infiltrates, and they addressed it. The thing that I was hoping for, they did. The Secret Service took the doll, and they investigated it. They scanned it through an X-ray. The guy makes a comment because it has bones, and he's like, "Man, the attention to detail these days." But that's it. I'm good. Like, they're doing a lot of things that I'm like, please, yes, do this, because it's like, even though it's such a silly thing, like, this is the Chucky franchise. Like, there's so many things that they don't need to address, but this is like the continuity thing. I love that no matter how silly it is, they always do. I think Don is like me in a lot of ways, where he's like, no, I got to explain how this doll would get into the White House because that has tight security and this and that. And he addresses it, as opposed to like a kid finding a doll that's sitting on the back. They would think that was a bomb. That's the president's kid's thing.
Yeah.
You would they would not let him take it in the car. I'm going to call bullshit on that. But the fact that they at least scan it, I was like, okay, I'm good.
Don't you think though that like seeing a full skeletal like thing inside the doll, that they would be like, is this a person? Don't you think that would be like the thought? Like, is this a tiny human?
Do I think that?
Yeah.
No.
Why?
Because it's clearly not a human.
But it could be a human in a suit.
I mean, it could be
a tiny human.
I mean, he's just like, and weighs like 2 pounds. Because Chucky's light, even though he shouldn't be, because he is actually like a human, basically.
Yeah,
in a
but he
doll
has
form.
like the magic to like. He makes his face do that weird thing where it's just like he looks like a doll, but then other times it's like animated and he's like moving it. But you know what I mean?
How
like sometimes
how
he just
he's
is like
to do that. I have
he's
no
just
idea.
a doll. Like
that's his resting face.
But it's but it also isn't, because he talks when he's like that too. He'll be like, "Hi, I'm Joseph. Heidi ho, ha ha ha." Like he says things.
He can, yeah.
That aren't like the pre-recorded things.
But if you do like, some people have resting bitch face. Chucky has resting doll face. He's just like, and he looks like a doll.
It just like totally changes. It's so funny. I love it though.
It's silly.
I love it.
It's silly. I've always had that question, but I just
like,
take it as.
How does he do that?
It's just his
it's
talent.
It's just the voodoo magic.
It's like people who can raise like different eyebrows and move their ears, and he's good
like, guys, watch
muscle control.
Yeah. Like, how scary, like if you just looked over in my face, I was just a doll face. It's great. But it is like, because it looks different than like resting face, where like even resting face, even if you have no emotion, you still have like life and animation in your face,
Yeah.
And he's just
like, of course. None of us look like a doll when we're resting. Although my kids kind of do. Like when they were really little,
when they're like asleep,
they look angelic. They look they look like dolls.
Yeah.
Basically. So I think actually that's not a terrible point, because when my kids were like 2-3 years old, which he's like, how old do I look? And she's like 3, and he's like,
I know.
She's like, okay, 2, and he's like, don't lie to me. That was hilarious. But I mean, with my kids, I can show you pictures. When I used to creepily take little pictures of them while they're sleeping, because they look so angelic.
Yeah.
And they look like a porcelain doll. Their face, because they have no lines, they have no anything. There's chubby
no like
cheeks.
experience.
It's just like nothing.
It's just like
no stress.
Exactly. And then you start going through life.
No pain.
And freaking pain and stress and anxiety.
It doesn't only create wrinkles in your brain.
It's also
in your face.
They had smooth brains then.
Yeah.
And smooth faces.
Smooth faces and smooth brains. So Chucky has that ability.
Yeah.
And we do get confirmation that Nika stays in contact with Gigi.
Yep.
Which is cool to hear. Whether or not we'll see them again, I'm going to say yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll say yes.
We'll see them again.
I won't be shocked if we don't, but I will be bummed and a little surprised, because this just shows you what a great relationship Don keeps with everyone he works with. He must be somebody people enjoy working with, because everyone keeps coming back. Everyone who's part of the franchise, everyone who's like attached to it in even the smallest way.
Mm-hmm.
They do need to, at some point, though, something that I would like to have them address is a couple things from Seed of Chucky. I want to know, that, like, the RZA was killed. I want to know that Britney Spears, we're still remembering the night that she crashed her car.
Yeah.
Right? Stuff like that. Or he kills Britney Spears. He kills RZA. Like, there's celebrities
that
die in Seed of Chucky that I feel like that would be super funny.
It would.
Although, maybe it would be in poor taste right now, and maybe that's why they're not, because
that's a good point.
It does look like Britney might be going through another mental break.
Yeah.
This knife dance thing that's all over the internet right now. Like, maybe Dawn's just like, no. Like, I could do it as a joke, but the girl has enough.
I think it probably would be in poor taste, but
I would still laugh.
Yeah.
I would still laugh because I am Mr. Poor Taste. But I respect the decision if that is why it is, but it would be funny to me if, 20-year memorial on television of Britney Spears' death after crashing her car off of, the mountain. That would be funny. I would just love to see that addressed to confirm that it's Britney.
Right.
Right? Because it looks like Britney, and her license plate suggests that it's Britney, and then he says, oops, I did it again after he killed her, right? Like that kind of stuff. So that, and then like, Wu-Tang Clan has never recovered since the death of RZA.
Yeah.
And Old Dirty Bastard, and I don't know how many of them have actually died. RZA's still alive. He did the music for Kill Bill. Anyways, so that's that. Anything more? Did I miss anything? We talked about so much, guys. I don't think we should talk about it anymore. No matter what, because this is going on for so long.
I don't know.
There's just so much in this episode.
Yeah, there is a lot.
And we talked about it because it's a dream sequence, but we do get the return of Andy.
Yeah, like right away. It's like beginning of the episode.
And funny enough, we literally didn't talk about Jake, Lexi, Devin at all.
No, they're in this episode, like, because Lexi goes to visit Jennifer Tilly in prison. Like, that's where we see her, and they're actually at the trial as well. They're at her trial.
Yeah.
And they're like all like kind of celebrating when she gets sentenced to death.
Yeah.
And Mika has a really great interaction with her where she's like psychotic and is like, I'm gonna roll this all over your grave. Like, it's a date. Like, okay, like. And Tiffany is just like, okay, like, all right.
And she confesses her love for her.
Yeah, I mean, I do think she loves her.
Because she boxing Helene at her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that
cutting someone's arms and legs off?
Yeah, so but I mean, I think we talked about everything. It's just, there was a ton. This was a really packed episode. It was great.
Best episode of the season for sure.
Yeah, so far. Definitely.
And we get a really, really gnarly good kill or two every episode.
Yes, I'm loving that.
Yeah.
For sure.
So, I mean, honestly, this is on track right now to maybe be my favorite season if we continue down this path. But every season has been so good for me. Yeah. The fact that people are like, I don't like this show, it's not doing anything for me, is
they just don't like the style. They don't like the comedy which is fine. Like, we've talked about it. If you're not fans of like Bride or Seed, like, that's more the tone of the show.
It's the most like cold.
Like, but anyway.
Whatever, you're missing out. The show rules.
It does.
And is such a wonderful continuation of this franchise. Mm-hmm. I just feel like we're getting, like, every 2 episodes is another Chucky movie.
Yeah.
Right? You're getting another Child's Play movie. We're getting like 4 freaking 8, and then this one's like brings it up to like 12 new Chucky movies.
I know.
Right?
Yeah.
In the time allotted. This was like when Ash Ash versus Evil Dead came out.
Yeah.
And every like 3 episodes was like a film. So you got like 10 new Evil Dead movies. Yeah. It's awesome. Like, it's awesome. When it's this quality, when the kills look this good, when Chucky looks amazing, the best he's probably ever looked.
Yes.
I don't know how you couldn't like it.
Yeah.
But,
me either.
Oh well. All right. That's that. And we'll see you guys in a few days, because this is not a whole week. We have to wait at least. Yeah. It's only like 4 days. Mm-hmm. So we're not that late. We're only 3 days.
Not too late.
Yeah. All right, guys.
Bye.